study session for the Costa Mesa Sanitary District for November 13th to order. Roll call, Madam Clerk, please.
Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
Assistant Secretary Robert Uten.
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer. Present. Vice President James Ferriman.
Present.
President Michael Schaefer.
Here. Before we start the proceedings, I know it's not official and the Registrar of Voters has a whole ton of votes left to count, but I would just like to congratulate my two colleagues to the right of me for what appears to be a successful re-election campaign to the Costa Mesa Sanitary District.
All right.
Thank you. The voters are pretty smart in Costa Mesa in some elections. This one they were really smart. Unfortunately, Director, you came in third place out of the three of us, but we'll let the record reflect that as well.
They were my quality, not quantity.
Exactly. All right. Frivolity's done. This is the time for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak on subject matter with the sanitary district not listed on the agenda are welcome to speak now. Each speaker will be limited to 4 minutes. Seeing none of you jumping up to speak. Are you? No, okay. Then I'll close the public comments and we'll move to our items of study. Just a note, in our items of study,
Are we going to do the flag?
we don't do a flag, so it doesn't call for one.
So we're not going to do
I
it.
do what I'm told on the list. Under items of study, item 4, the President Pump Station reconstruction, we are going to move that until after item 7 so that we won't hear the snoring from the CR&R folks as we talk about this. So, it's been a weird week, Dean. It's only Tuesday, and it's already been a strange week. All right, so let's go to item 1, code enforcement report. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ed Roberts will be giving this report.
Good morning, President Schaefer and members of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Board. Ed Roberts, I'll be presenting your October 2018 Code Enforcement Officer staff report. Ladies and gentlemen, for that month, I conducted a series of 7 proactive scavenging investigations spread out sporadically throughout the community. For the benefit of the Board of Directors, I did enclose a ready reference map at the rear of the presentation that should have a visual for you of where they were concentrated. The locations were a little bit more diverse this month, some in the west end and mostly on the north end of town. Locations were around 2210 Avalon Street, which is a west side location, 601 Cove Street, which is also in the west end, 153 Delmar Avenue, east side location here in the vicinity of City Hall, 2153 Maple Street, and the remainder are going to be on Pepper Tree Lane, 2900 block, which I believe the Board of Directors is familiar with the 2900 block of Pepper Tree. It's a high concentration of apartment buildings and alleyways there, and majority of those multifamily apartment units use CMSD service rather than trash dumpsters. So I do spend a considerable amount of my time in that area. And the final one was in the 600 block of Plumer Street, residential location. Does anybody have any questions regarding the scavenging?
I had one.
Yes, ma'am.
Once you notify them that there's a problem, that they're not applying what they should be doing to all the laws, you give them a citation. What happens after that?
Ma'am, actually the process that we use, or that I use traditionally, I'm dealing with indigent folks, transient individuals by nature. Most of these folks are not in possession of any state-issued identification cards, or they refuse to give them to me. The nature of our contacts they're not criminal in the fact that I really can't push the contact, to do a search or, try to locate identification. The goal really, truly with these folks is to, educate them while we're out there during the contact. Most of these folks are transient. They float in and out of our community at will. They'll set up shop in Costa Mesa, and then within the span of a few weeks or so, they'll move on elsewhere. in the county of Orange. The few that are cooperative with me, and when I say cooperative, most folks, I've yet to have a contact that's really escalated to where I felt my safety was concerned. Most of these folks, the goal is to get them to deposit any recyclable material that's been collected, because they'll have large amounts of them. They'll have trash bags or shopping carts or baby strollers full of the material. If you notice in my narrative, most of the time I'll just have them redeposit whatever scavenged items they've collected into a nearby recyclable material cart, because it'd be impractical to have them go back and redeposit in the it'd be counterproductive to have them go back and return to whichever location they took from. So we'll just have them dump them off into the nearest cart. At that point, I'll give them an admonishment. Based off of my experience, there are folks that you will see in the community here and there. They do avoid contact with us. It's kind of a sit and wait game for me. If they see my car in the vicinity, most of the time they'll just kind of duck in and walk away. If I do catch them in progress, I'll make contact with them and re-admonish. But it's a very, very difficult process. Code enforcement, myself, and I'm sure the law enforcement agency here in Costa Mesa knows that to issue a citation to a transient individual is very, very difficult to identify him. With that comes, issuance of a citation would be ideal if we had a person that we could hone in address to, do follow up, hold them accountable with collection efforts, that kind of stuff. We really don't have that available to us. Most of the time it's just stay on top of these folks and just accomplish the mission by just our recyclable material staying where it needs to stay, as opposed to taking it any further to prosecute them.
If I may interrupt, to piggyback on Officer Roberts' comments, we do have administrative citations in our code. So any citations that Officer Roberts issues is an administrative citation, which means it does not go through the court system. It goes, if someone gets an administrative citation, they can request a hearing, which I am the hearing officer, and so they will request like the dismissal of the citation or lowering the fee. Right now, the fee for scavenging is, I think it's either $75 or $250, something that it's an amount that we know that scavengers can't afford. And so that's why this board has given direction to staff to issue citations to individuals that are recycling as a business. In other words, they're working out of their vehicles. If Officer Roberts catches them, then he'll cite them for that. But if it's just a transient going through recyclables, we know they can't afford. Even if we lower it to like $15, $20, it's very difficult for them to write. So that's the procedures we would go through. We don't go through the court system, so it's a little easier. But again, per the board directions, we only cite if we're seeing people stealing recyclables as a business.
It's a credit to the efforts. You said something about when they see your car, they know who you are. I think that's a really proactive thing. I mean, it's a deterrent, but they're still going to do it. I mean, they're still going to. Just a quick question on the Pepper Tree incidents. Is one of the three individuals you had mentioned, it's hard to use the word elderly because I fall in that category too, but kind of a middle-aged, elderly Hispanic guy with a ball cap?
Yes, sir. With a bicycle.
With a bicycle.
Yes, sir.
So it's the same guy that I see when
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to my office.
Yes, sir.
And again, if we give them a fine, most of these guys are going to have to go out and scavenge more to get the money to pay the fine. So I think we're doing a pretty good job with this program. I think I had thought once maybe when you interact with someone, you take their picture, so we have a record. But I don't want to get into the legalities of that stuff. I mean, that'd be a little tough to.
Another we could just, we still have the lockable containers. We could still push those. As far as the commercial side, that's not our purview. They do have lockable bins, to prevent theft. So there are steps that businesses can take to prevent it as well.
One of the things I think we fight is, and I'll ask you this: do the residents really care if these people are going through their trash cans?
Yes, sir. Actually, I've gotten a lot of feedback from the residents. One of the things that I discussed with Scott a long time ago was the wisdom of marking the Volt. The Volt has very, very clear markings, which the idea wasn't to make it look like a patrol car or anything like that, but by virtue of it having the sanitary district seal and the code enforcement emblazoned on it very, very visibly, it is a visual detractor. And that's something based on my experience that more cops, more code enforcement out on the streets kind of placates the challenges that we deal with. I do have feedback from the residents continuously because most of the folks that are depositing their personal material into trash cans are concerned with identity theft. They're going to be worried about their mailings because over time they'll be able to piece together a person's identity based off of various documents that they're, partial social on one letter, the other partial on the other end of the letter. So we've gotten very, very good feedback about it. And for lack of a better term, it is a cat and mouse game. I'm in the alley. They know when I'm in the alley, so I try to change it up as best I can. I take different approaches. I'll park on the far end, across the street, in the backyard, whatever I have to do, and then I'll pop out in the alley and see if I can catch them doing it. And if we're deterring them from doing it, I would say mission accomplished on that as well.
I appreciate you making the comment and also for you making the comment, because I've had people calling me and asking that some of them don't have shredders and they're very upset, what's going on one way or the other. And it's less than it's ever been as far as the people, scavengers. It's really getting good now.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate the feedback.
Anyway, thank you.
Certainly.
Is that elderly gentleman, was he wearing an Iowa State hat?
Not that I recall, sir.
That was a Halloween costume.
Ed, when you approach somebody, do you ask for their name?
I do, sir.
And do you keep record of those names?
I used to, sir. I received direct, I believe, from the board. I used to incorporate the names of the person I contacted on the actual report, but because I believe this is, matter of public record and all that, and essentially we're broadcasting, we refrain from doing that at this point.
And my second question is, like Scott mentioned, the people that do this as a business, I haven't seen anybody in a couple of years. Have you seen anybody?
I have one item. Actually, Mr. Ferriman had alerted me years ago of a white pickup truck that would come in from the Santa Ana end of town. It would cross right, I believe, at South Coast. And it looked like it was more of a commercial recycling operation, if anything. First vehicle I'd ever seen that was engaged in scavenging.
Because we used to have the blue truck in Mesa Verde, but
Oh, I see.
we haven't seen that. I haven't seen that in years.
We have an old Toyota van in my neighborhood. It's funny, during the, talking about scavenging, and I think you guys will appreciate this from CRNR. I had a resident, one of my neighbors actually, who came over to talk to me about the election and my candidacy, and she says, you guys are doing a great job. She says, the only disagreement I have with you guys is you used to do those big item pickups. And I said, we still do those. I said, but you have to call us, schedule it. She says, that's the point. I liked it when they were scheduled.
Yeah.
I said, well, part of the problem was we had a lot of people driving into town and picking and scavenging. And she says, but that was the whole idea. She says, I used to love walking around and finding things that people were trying to get rid of for myself. And I'm thinking, I'm not going down that line anymore.
Not the spirit of the idea, right?
So.
Gotcha. Are there any further questions in reference to the scavenging? No.
Good.
And just additionally, a series of 128 warnings were issued throughout the community for the month in reference to trash carts being left out. So, and again, for the benefit of the board, there's a detailing of all the streets and the number that were issued on that. No cases of graffiti or damage or any vandalism in reference to our trash carts that I'm aware of. Most do circulate to my office eventually. I haven't heard of anything. And a little bit of feedback from Costa Mesa code enforcement folks that I liaison with seems to be that they're aware of the scavenging activity because it does come through their desk, and those are forwarded to me immediately. So they're making me aware of them. I have nothing further. Any questions?
That's good. Thanks, Ed.
All right, my pleasure.
Always good job.
Thank you so much.
All right, Scott, we'll move to item 2, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item numbers 2 and 3 are just for your information, and staff's available to answer any questions.
Questions for staff on the?
Does that 62.28 represent from OCC also?
Not this month. We did not receive OCC's or in time to include.
So it's going to be higher than 62 points, so closer to 64 maybe, if we get lucky.
Maybe.
Okay,
I don't like those numbers.
maybe 63. Okay, thanks.
Any questions? Okay, item 3.
Again, Mr. President, this is just for your information, and staff is available to answer any questions.
Any questions on the organics tonnage report? Bob? You figured, go ahead.
Not necessarily a question, but, you know, the organic content it goes up and down. The organics collection goes up and down. My question is maybe to CR&R, how much waste is in the organics carts that is not does not go to the anaerobic digesters? Is it a small percentage? I know I'm careful about not putting big limbs in there, or big tree trunks, because I don't think there's some, well, I think there's some things that probably get separated out at the transfer station.
Director, for the last 12 months, the Costa Mesa Sanitary District Organics waste generation separated into the organics cart has been what we consider very clean.
Oh, okay.
95% of all of the materials are going to the anaerobic digester.
So, Jeff, can you do me a favor? Could you speak on the podium so we can get you on the camera and stuff? Thank you.
Good morning, President Schaefer and directors. In regards to the question about the organics generation and collected materials, CR&R has found the stream separated by residents of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District to be highly clean relative to other streams that we're managing. Approximately 95.4% of all the material placed into the organics bin goes to the anaerobic digestion facility in Paris, where it's converted into ultra clean fuel and compost. So less than 5% of that is considered residue or trash that has to be separated out and disposed of in a landfill. Very, very pleased with the low contamination standards that are being set here in the district. Great question.
I have a question, Mike.
Whatever.
When you talk about compost, have you accumulated a lot of compost right now?
So, great question, Director Perry. All the material that goes into the digester, it's converted to biogas. That reduces the mass substantially. But what's left over is digestate, and it is a fertilizer based compost, and we have partnerships with Scott's and Kellogg's who purchase that material and sell it as organic soil amendments and organic soil blends. So it's roughly 50% of the material that goes in comes out as a very highly beneficial compost for landscapers, farmers, agriculture, horticulturists as well. There is absolutely zero waste in the whole process.
The reason I asked is we have a program with CR&R that we're going to be taking some of your compost and giving it out to our residents, and I think that's planned for the spring, isn't it, Scott? We don't have a date yet for that, do we? That's the reason I asked, to make sure we have enough product.
Great question, and residents will love it, and we normally distribute that, somewhere centrally and do it in bulk where people can pull up, fill up their vehicles, and their gardens will thank them for it.
Follow-up question then. Where do you think it would be the area that we would distribute when it comes to Costa Mesa? Have you thought about that? I mean, I don't know, Dean, have you thought about that? Or Scott?
We were thinking about tying this program into another donation event, so tie it together. So maybe we can partner with OCC again. Plenty of space there.
That's what I was thinking. That'd
Yes.
be ideal.
It's more centralized too, so we thought OCC would be a good location.
Are they permitted for that, for us to do that or not?
I don't know. I'd have to confirm that with Mike.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. That was my question.
Thank you.
So Jeff, you must do you before Kellogg gets it, it has to be dried. Do you dewater it at the anaerobic digestion site?
The anaerobic digestion process does quite a bit to reduce the moisture content, but we do bring it to our Lakeview composting facility for curing and finishing before it's distributed to Scott's and Kellogg's.
So that wet material, it's pretty wet, that must be blended with dry material and
Jeff, where's the Lakeview complex? Pardon me?
In Lakeview.
No, was that a city? No, is that?
It's in Riverside County, really within just a couple miles of the anaerobic digester facility, which is great because we're emitting less greenhouse gases in the transportation of those materials.
It's up near Lake Paris. As you head towards Lake Paris, I've seen it kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, no, I'm just curious.
Okay, any other questions?
It's great.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, directors. Great questions.
Any other questions on item 3? You know, if you guys will indulge me for a second, with everything that's happened with the fires fairly close to us, there's going to be a need for people to get rid of debris. Do you guys get involved in that at all? I mean, is that I know we're going to talk in a minute about your performance review, and one of the things in there was, I don't know, Nabila, help me with this, humanitarian projects? Or am I using the right term?
Yes, that's one of the sections.
I mean, realistically, we don't have a lot of humanitarian projects here. We may have had when the fires. Do you guys get involved in any kind of relief for debris or any of that stuff, or is that all federal or state? I mean, it'd be kind of cool to sponsor something like that or to be part of something like that.
Mr. Chairman, Dean Ruffridge with CRNR. We get involved out of state at our landfill in Arizona, mainly because the majority of the debris from fires is considered hazardous waste in California and not hazardous in Arizona. So a lot of it is transported out of state. And what happens, in fact, we just finished about 25,000 tons out of, remember the fire in Fallbrook about 4 or 5 years ago? That just basically has gotten cleaned up recently. And we took most of that debris over in Yuma, Arizona. And what happens when things catch on fire, in especially older buildings, there's asbestos involved, of course. And what we found out in Fallbrook were a lot of golf carts with batteries that exploded in the golf carts, and when they explode, it kind of contaminates everything around it. So a lot of that debris went out of state.
Yeah, I know the Fallbrook. I had a customer in the Fallbrook area who didn't suffer any necessarily fire damage to their home, but their pool filled up with soot and smoke and ash and stuff. And so under their insurance, we had to pay for that pool to be cleaned. And what they did is they brought in a pumper truck and they pumped all that water in. It was considered hazardous waste.
Yep.
They had to dispose of that ash as hazardous. So that's a good point, Dean.
Yeah, so that's how we got involved mostly. As far as hauling, if it's considered hazardous waste, CRNR will not haul it. They bring a hazardous waste hauler in.
I appreciate you indulging me on that. Okay, then we're going to move to item 5 then, Scott, right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Nabila Guzman is going to give his report.
Ela, morning.
Good morning, President Schaefer, members of the board. Per our solid waste agreement, the district completes a yearly performance review of CRNR contract. Mike Valley will give his presentation first. And then I will do my staff's review.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, members of the board. I apologize for being late. I thought this was a 10 o'clock meeting, even though I was told it was 9:30. It was on my calendar at 9:30, but I got a 10-minute reminder at 9:20, so made record time. Basically, the performance review was not remarkable in any way, which doesn't mean that you're not getting remarkable service, but really all areas are in compliance. Again, your rate structure is a little bit different or difficult to measure because it's not apples to apples. So you have a formula which establishes a midpoint rate for the county, and the rates cannot be more than 10 points, even though, or 10 percentage points higher, even though you have a lot more service than, frankly, the other cities in Orange County. Your diversion rate is approaching 60%. I think you're bumping right up against it this year. CRNR is probably one of the better companies that I audit with regards to maintaining their fleet, training their employees, and being able to actually divert a lot of your material when we are going through challenges with markets with China's green sword. So in closing and keeping it brief, they basically complied with all of the contractual requirements that I was hired to review, and they're doing a good job for a competitive rate.
That's a good bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, where else can you go with that? That's well said.
Exactly.
Questions for Mike?
Is there another city that has a higher diversion rate than, we're at like 62 or 63 right now?
No, not that I'm aware of. Again, what I'm seeing in some cities is they're actually falling below 50% because they're having a hard time with markets. The nice thing about CRNR is it appears they have pretty strong and established markets with materials, so they're not having to shop it with more fluctuating buyers. Sometimes it's better to be prudent and establish relationships than try to chase the best price, because sometimes the folks paying you the best price, are trying to gain market share, and then they don't have the underpinnings to compete with the slow and steady market firms.
You do benchmarks? In other words, of all the ones that you do, and
Well, unfortunately, I'm a small consulting firm, and I don't do a lot of cities. I do City of Irvine, I do Laguna Woods, I do Los Alamitos here in Orange County, and then Diamond Bar. I am somewhat familiar with the other cities and the other haulers and what's going on, but I don't have enough of that data to really do a benchmark study.
Are they doing diversion too?
Excuse me?
Are they doing diversions?
They certainly are, but again, your advantage is going to be significant in 2020. Right now, all the haulers are able to take their green waste, chop it up to a 4-inch minus or 2-inch minus, use it at the landfill as alternative daily cover. That is expiring in 2020. They'll no longer be able to do it, and most cities are depending on that for a large percentage of their diversion. That's going to go away, and frankly, residential green waste in typical cities, you guys do a better job here than most, has 22 to 24% contamination. You put the PET droppings in there, you throw the plastic in there. Composting facilities don't want that. So again, you're flowing your material, getting energy out of it, you're polishing, cleaning it at a facility, so you're in much better shape to continue to take advantage of composting markets when other cities are frankly going to have a hard time.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Sure.
What are these other cities going to do in 2020? Are they going to go to CRNR? Or are they already, Dean? They're not yet.
Well, I think the county is doing some studies at the landfill to see if they can get into the composting business to help the cities out. But the biggest change is going to be an economic one. Frankly, they're able to dump that material for free as daily cover. They're not going to be able to dump it for free. They're going to have to process it, and that's going to add to their bottom line. And then the question is, with all the new food waste recycling from the commercial side, combined with all this green waste that was formerly daily cover flooding the composting market, what's that going to do? So again, you have more closer to a closed loop system and a nice process that should allow you to avoid the pain a lot of other cities, I think, are going to feel.
It's interesting. I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Assemblyman Harper, and I asked him about the diversion stuff and just to kind of get a feel of what maybe an assembly member might understand with what's going on. And Harper's not pretty sharp guy. I mean, he's involved in some stuff with the legislature that I think have made him effective to a certain extent. But when I asked him about, I don't know, Dean, if you and I talked, or I talked to someone about how some of the big haulers, Waste Management, Republic, are looking at leaving California because of the regulation. I mean, it's a kind of an industry trend. And I sort of talked to Harper. I asked him what his thoughts are. And I was really surprised because he says, oh, there's so much landfill area, they're not going to have to worry about it. They're going to be able to take everything to the landfill. And I'm thinking, not as smart as I thought you were, because that's just not going to happen. So I think the whole state government system, the Assembly and the Senate, I don't think they have a clue for the most part. I mean, when those regulations, unless the new governor throws them out the window, which he's certainly not going to do, these guys, I think, Art, your question is really, what are these people going to do? Yeah. You know, they're going to stack it up like they did in New York and take it over to Catalina or out in a barge somewhere. You know, it's surprising.
Well, I expect the state will do the same thing they've done. They just don't bother to do anything.
They'll extend the deadline, or they'll do something. Mike mentioned, some agencies and/or cities aren't at 50%. I don't know how long that regulation's been in effect, but the state has done nothing. They've done nothing.
And they really can't. If the majority of the cities and state agencies can't meet that deadline.
Well, I don't care what the rest of the state. Your comments are well taken. What you just said about us being ahead of the curve, basically, and doing what we. So I appreciate it, and I think we all appreciate that. We appreciate our partner doing what needs to be done. So I had a question about, and again, I saw this on a news report about newspaper, cardboard, mixed paper. You had a chart in here about where that stuff goes, and all of that goes to China still. Are they still buying from you guys cardboard? You're not going to Vietnam or Singapore like some of the other.
Well, again, I reviewed a period that ended in June, so as of that time, the weight tickets showed it all going to China. And again, that's in large part because of our legislature and picking winners and losers, and they don't want paper manufacturers because they emit things into the air. So we basically wiped out our local markets. So the option has been to backhaul it basically on ships to China markets.
In this report I saw on TV, they were talking about California needs to build, a cardboard recycling facility, basically. And then the next guy was talking about, well, here's what it's going to cost to do that. And the original guys went, oh, well, maybe that's not a good. We'll continue to send it to Vietnam now, I guess, is a big market.
And it frankly creates more pollution in traveling that route than saved. I remember my daughter, who turns 30 today, if you can believe that. I was 12 when she was born. We went to Fort Bragg, and we rode the skunk train and went to Mendocino and all that. And they had a paper mill there where literally half the town worked. That was closed up because it was an environmental polluter, and the state's, I think, going to have to loosen it or allow more manufacturing for recyclable materials to support the markets to achieve the diversion rates that they mandated. They're all interconnected.
With the results of the recent election, that's probably not going to happen. It'll be tighter. I mean, it's going to get tighter into the new administration, I think. Yeah, but there's innovations, and again, they can come up with some type of gasification or better controls on those stacks. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I think we'll be okay. It's just going to be probably a 5-year period of pain until we get over the hump. Someone needs to talk to Amazon about a better shipping container, I think, is what they're going to have to do. So.
There you go.
Any other questions for Mike? That's good. Thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Nabila?
Staff also reviewed the contract for the term of July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. We reviewed them in 6 areas and made the following findings. In regards to cost and price control, during the review period, the price decreased to $17.88 from $17.94 in fiscal year 17. 16-17 due to adding more units, but the overall tonnage is not increasing. So I have been working with CRNR over the last year and a half to reconcile our occupancy list. So we've added a lot of units that we weren't charging or accounting for before. So we did add more units, but again, the tonnage has remained the same. In regards to schedule control, district staff tracks hauler complaints using Gov Outreach, and we found there were 76 missed curbside pickup complaints submitted through Gov Outreach and 46 separate complaints about missed pickups. Staff believes the number is much higher, and while staff is concerned about the increase in number of missed collections, it is still less than 1% of the 22,685 units CRNR picks up weekly. In regards to contract administration, CRNR promptly sends district staff month-end reports for processing, but there has been an issue there's been an ongoing issue with invoices being incorrect. Tickets are checked against invoices for accuracy, and they always check out, but invoice totals have been consistently off by several dollars. For the fiscal year in review, CRNR underbilled the district $625.55. This has been discussed with CRNR staff, but the district has been told to pay the amount that staff thinks is correct. In regards to responsiveness to government, CRNR has provided trash boxes for community events. They provide a bale of aluminum cans for the annual Count the Cans contest at the Costa Mesa Community Run. CRNR also participated in the second annual truck adventure for kids, and they brought a trash truck for the kids to see and enjoy. In comparison to last fiscal year, district staff only received 4 complaints about missed Christmas tree pickups in the weeks following Christmas Day, which was an improvement from the previous year. Improvements can be made in regards to assistance scheduling CRNR facility tours. Staff experienced significant pushback from CRNR staff when requesting tours of the MRF and AD facility for our SEPA events. So improvements could be made in helping scheduling those tours. Area 5, contract compliance. The master manifest records a 59.44 diversion rate, which is, in our contract, they are only required to divert 50%, so they are in compliance. We did have an issue in November 2017 when a resident reported that a CRNR driver was blocking her driveway because he was in his cell phone. So staff requested to see the video. We got the video, but then it was missing the 5 minutes of the actual incident. So we had to go back and forth a few times to get that.
Richard Nixon in charge of that?
So it did take a while for staff to receive the full video and see what actually happened. In September 2017, new residents experienced up to 3 weeks to receive their cards. CRNR was experiencing a shortage, but they failed to notify staff or residents, so we were taking payment from new residents, but they weren't receiving their cards for 3 weeks, and there was upset residents because it was taking so long. So it would have been nice if CRNR had given us a heads up that they were experiencing a shortage, then we could have relayed it to our residents. And lastly, key personnel. In February 2017, CRNR replaced their representatives, their route manager, and their sustainability coordinator to the district. But they both have been cooperative and have taken the time to learn about the district programs and policies, so they've been great. And that concludes my report.
You talked about we didn't have enough units that we were paying for. How many units were they? You know?
We have back-billed about 35 units that we weren't collecting payment for. And I do have another list of units I will be back-billing for pretty soon. That just based on the ongoing audits, we're just finding all these residents.
Do you send those to the county for collection?
No, we've been sending them an invoice. And we give them a year to pay, so in December we will be collecting final payments. Or if they didn't pay, it'll be on their tax roll for the following year.
Okay. So have we notified the county yet about those or not?
Not yet. Not yet, because the ones we have invoiced have done a pretty good job about paying or setting up a payment plan.
Okay. But eventually they'll go to the county to get on the tax rolls.
Yes, and for this past assessment that passed in August, all those new ones that we found were placed on the tax roll, so they are current.
I had one more question about the Christmas trees. How do we notify our residents about the Christmas tree deadline?
It will be placed on social media. Gina will do a post. It was also on our last newsletter. And I just finalized the banner with PARS, and they will be placed on the trucks beginning December. So it'll have the dates.
Okay, because I've been getting notices about the district from it's called the Next Door Neighbor in Mesa Verde. Do you contact them also? Because they've been notifying you about things that are happening.
I don't think Gina would have a better knowledge if she used, I don't think we use Nextdoor.
Well, it's for the upper Bird Streets in Mesa Verde. I mean, I don't know. They have all the information normally. Gina.
Nextdoor is it's neighborhood specific, and right now we don't have a government account. They tend to only allow law enforcement typically to have a citywide account. So we have an account just for our area, which is just around our office.
Okay. I was just curious how they know everything that's going on.
But we
It's
can
good.
review it and we can respond to people's inquiries.
Those are my questions.
Any other questions? Okay. I think overall, when you don't have very many U's checked, I think that's a good report. I mean, the pushback on the tours and stuff, I think I understand part of it, but that's something that I think we can work out. But to have, I remember when I used to have a lot of employees would say, well, I only got a satisfactory. Satisfactory is good. So congratulations to CRNR on our part for maintaining a good relationship. And I think that's well expected. Anybody else have any comments on that?
I have one.
Yeah.
Dean, we have a new ad hoc committee based on our, was it 75th year?
Yes.
It's coming up this next year. We may ask CRNR to participate in some events. I don't know which, because we haven't met yet as a committee, but I was thinking just to have you be aware that we may have some things popping up, but that we may ask for your help again. But I'm not sure what they are or if we're going to have any, but we'll have to wait and see. We haven't met yet.
We will.
Okay.
It's our anniversary, so it's a big thing. We're going to make a splash.
But, yeah, congratulations. Thank you for what I think Mike would confirm is a pretty good relationship. And I'll go back to that comment I made about us being ahead of the curve. I think we are. I mean, I talk to, and I think we all do, we talk to people in other cities, even Newport Beach, I think is a little envious of what we have. So thank you guys for all of that. Okay. Anything else for that? All right, then we'll move to item 6, the diversion public outreach efforts.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this item was requested by the board to bring this back for discussion. First off, Nabila Guzman will give the board report on past outreach efforts to increase our diversion and some additional programs we are considering for the future. And then CRNR is going to give a presentation about their proposed outreach efforts as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Nabila.
President Schaefer, members of the board, for direction from the board, staff has prepared an overview of what's currently being done to help the district achieve 75% diversion by the year 2020. Over the last year, the district has made an effort to provide all outreach material in a bilingual format to educate the Spanish-speaking community, which is over 1/3 of the Costa Mesa's population, on the district's diversion efforts. Last year, the board of directors directed staff to make the quarterly newsletter bilingual, as well as mail out bilingual postcards to the west side of the city, which received a very, very positive response. The district received a grant from the Orange County Waste and Recycling Agency to fund SEPA, as well as monthly social media posts to promote the organics program. The grant also will fund the purchase of bilingual door hangers that will be distributed throughout the service area, promoting the organics program and just reminding residents what goes in the organic cart and what goes in the mixed waste cart.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this grant for this next year or past year?
It started this fiscal year, and it is 5 years, but it's The 5th year, we have to provide 75% of it.
Okay, so how much is the grant, how much can we use in the grant this year? Money-wise, roughly.
For this year, we have a total of about 13,500.
Have we spent any of that yet?
We have the majority of it.
I'm just thinking for the ad hoc committee. Okay, go ahead, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem. While the district is currently diverting 60% of the waste from the landfill, it was recommended that staff turn its attention to keeping textiles out of the landfill. So the district hosted a Goodwill event in August 2018 and collected 2,750 pounds of goods. Although the event was not well attended, staff is recommending that we combine another Goodwill event with a free mulch giveaway at the OCC Recycling Center. And hopefully that will attract a bigger crowd, and we will keep more textiles away from the landfill. For the new solid waste contract, CRNR will be implementing a new cart-to-cart outreach program in efforts to increase the organics tonnage and encourage residents to place their food in the waste cart. As part of the program, the district is hoping to highlight a star resident who is currently participating in the program and awarding them a gift card for their efforts, as well as featuring them in the district's quarterly newsletter or social media. The logistics of this program have not been worked out with CRNR, as they are looking to hire a consultant to help us with this cart-to-cart outreach. CRNR is also committing to dedicate 20 hours a week in promoting solid waste diversion programs. Staff conducted an audit of these hours from July 1st to October 12th and found that the coordinator is averaging 17 hours a week working on CMSD programs. The audit also found that certain work for the City of Costa Mesa franchise was included in the 17 hours, so that has been talked. I have spoken to PARS about that, and we are hoping to correct it so he knows that there's a difference between the City of Costa Mesa work and CMSD work. Over the last 3 months, most of the hours have been dedicated to redesigning the residential guide that will be coming out next month. But that project is almost complete, so direction will be needed on what PARS should focus on next on his 20 hours. So I welcome any feedback, any recommendations you guys can have on what we can focus on next.
Scott, do you think that 20 hours can be used with the city coordination or not? Does it all have to be with us, or can that 20 hours go with the city also, since they have to turn in a report for the diversion?
We could definitely look into that, but I believe the city is going to look towards us to implement the diversion programs on the residential side. If you're saying use some of that 20 hours for the commercial side, we could, but that's not what residents are paying for. So my suggestion is to just work closely with CRNR to achieve our goal at 75%. And if we do that, then our disposal per capita will go down, and we'll look as leaders in the industry on the residential side.
Okay, just a thought for you.
That concludes the overview of what staff is doing to achieve 75%. If there are any questions, or CRNR can present their outreach plan to achieve 75%.
Well, I think education is, I think we're doing a superb effort as far as outreach and education. What I would like to see is a list of goals or potential programs, that we can work on in the next year and a half, or less than a year and a half, to get us to that 75% marker. I don't, personally, I think it's going to be extremely difficult. We've done a lot of education and education outreach in the past, and it has made a slight amount of difference. So I think we need to look more closely at goals or programs or and maybe some of this is contained in the report, and when I read it, I just glossed over it. But it's going to take a horrendous effort, I believe, and maybe something new and innovative. And I think CNR is on top of the market. I've heard them discuss additional lines for additional recyclable recovery. And, what I'd like to see is a list of staff or CRNR's programs, that would have potential. I expect some cities will look to the trash hauling vendors and say, look, those that are serious should look at, say, putting a criteria in their contract that said you will achieve 75%. And maybe CRNR has some of those cities, that are honestly going to make an attempt, or make the vendor make an attempt at achieving that 75%. I don't give a lot of hope to the cities and agencies that are barely even making 50%. They don't particularly care, because I don't think the state's going to do anything concerning them. But I think this agency has a large interest in making that 75% goal, and we could be the model. We should be piloting. We should be piloting projects. We should have been doing it in 2016. Dean and I called back to Iowa, and they're still in 2016. We need to move forward with this with a lot of innovation. But so hopefully staff and CRNR can work at the innovations needed to make that goal. I think we'd be looked upon as the agency that we think we are if we made that goal.
At our next liaison meeting, I'd like to see this on the agenda, that we can work with the city on this, and together, get them going on the diversion and what's going on, as well as us, and have this combination of both of us caring about what's going on. If you're all agreeable here? Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. Got my votes.
What kind of capacity does the Paris installation have remaining, if they have any remaining?
Dean Ruffridge with CRNR. It's an interesting question because I think most of you know we built 2 of the 4-phase project. And the bottom line is that the 2 phases are full. But a lot of that is taken up by the city of Los Angeles. They're bringing us about 160 tons a day on a quasi-type contract. We can move them out anytime we need. The interesting fact about the question is that Costa Mesa, being the first city to sign up for the project in Orange County, was guaranteed the lowest price. And if you want to know what the pricing is today without the grants, you're at $71.50 a ton. Right now, Jeff and I quoted yesterday to one of our contract cities that have been franchised with us in Orange County for many years. We're at $98.50. And after the first of the year, that'll be well over $100 in our next phases. So congratulations to this board and to the district and staff for signing up when you did. We have a couple cities that have approved the project that will be in the second phase in the first quarter. I think it's Aliso Viejo and Laguna Niguel, and La Habra, and they're in at the $87.50 rate. But everything that we're quoting now is at the higher rate. So we plan on, we will make a decision in the next couple of days on phases 3 and 4. Just so you know, we have one large company that is asked to buy out all of phase 3. at a much higher rate. So because they don't have any options for their customers in Riverside County. So that probably will spur both phases construction starting in the first quarter.
One of your competitors?
Yes.
Did it start with a B by any chance?
Starts with a W, I think.
We knew that would happen. I knew that would happen.
How long do we have the $71 per ton?
Well, I think Scott will agree with me on this. If I'm wrong, he will correct me. But you're guaranteed that $71.50 rate with only cost of living adjustments for as long as we're together.
God bless you.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
You were wise.
Yay. That's a good thing.
Something about World War II come into play in any of that? Contracts in World War II or anything like that? Never mind.
Oh, okay.
Never mind. Okay, other questions?
No, I think CNR, you're ready for the presentation, if you're ready.
The podium, just have to turn it on.
Good morning, Jeff Snow with CRNR Environmental Services, and want to thank you for the opportunity to be here to share information this morning, President Schaefer and directors. Did want to point out our new logo, the leaf, is redesigned, and it now resembles a fuel, natural gas flame, made without any fracking, without any drilling, by using renewable organic resources to create ultra-clean natural gas, and the circle around it represents a closed sustainability loop. There's really a linear economy where we extract resources from nature and dispose of them. The circular economy is about keeping all those resources in the system. So we're proud of that, and very, very proud and honored to be a partner of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. Going to talk a lot about diversion today and different ways to measure diversion, and some new movements in the industry in terms of life cycle analysis versus what's been common weight-based diversion. But thought we'd start out with a quick legislative review, and there's a whole lot that's come from Sacramento. AB 939 was the first milestone signed by Governor Duke Majian, and that required, it was signed in '89, and it set a mandate that 25% of materials had to be diverted from landfills by '95 and 50% by the year 2000. This is still the platinum standard. The state is enforcing this. Cal Recycle is now partnered with the Air Board, and Dean and I were made aware at a meeting a couple weeks ago that $10,000 a day fines had been levied against a city along the 710. So lots of new teeth, lots of new Cal Recycle that we're seeing in terms of enforcement. 2012, AB 341 was signed, and it set a state policy goal, not a mandate, but a goal of 75% diversion by the year 2020, and requires commercial recycling. In 2014, September 30th was the exact day Governor Brown went 4 for 4 on signing environmental bills. And all three of these, AB 1826, which is commercial food waste for the most part, AB 1594, which is residential green waste and alternative daily cover, or ADC, no longer counting as diversion, and SB 1383, all are really laser focused around the largest part of the waste stream, which is organics. Statewide, organics comprise 40% of all the waste resources that are generated and being landfilled. SB 1383 will require residential food waste recycling, and this just shows how far ahead of the curve your agency is. Your program is already compliant with SB 1383, where most municipalities haven't even heard of this bill yet, much less started planning and developing programs to implement. So Costa Mesa Sanitary District is already fully compliant with all this legislation, which truly puts you in a pioneer and leadership position. And all of this legislation, of course, will make for a more sustainable environment and cleaner air. In terms of the focus on organics, why is the state focusing on it? The map in the upper left shows methane emissions from landfills nationwide. And we can see our area in Southern California, where we all pay a whole lot of money to live, is amongst the most polluted areas in terms of methane. Methane is a short-lived climate pollutant that is up to 80 times more noxious than CO2 in the environment with its heat-trapping properties. Methane's really only created through 3 different sources: dairy cattle, dirty power plants being coal, and landfill with organics emissions. So if food waste alone was a country, it would be third in terms of pollution behind only China and the U.S. So organics is really getting this great focus because it is the greatest detractor from sustainability. Diversion, lots of talk about it today, and new but quickly growing concept deals with something called life cycle analysis. For the last 3 decades, almost all diversion has been measured by weight, by the weight of the materials that are diverted from the landfill. And in essence, this doesn't always contemplate the overall environmental outcomes. A ton of asphalt shingles recycled doesn't have anywhere near as much environmental benefit as a ton of, say, aluminum cans, where we don't have to go out to nature and mine more bauxite to come up with the raw goods. So nationwide, and certainly in our industry, lots and lots of movement towards measuring life cycle analysis versus weight. And some examples of this really come from changes in what we call the evolving ton. Trash today is very different than trash was 10, 20 years ago. Becoming almost as rare as a Babe Ruth card is a newspaper. Lots of children don't even know what these are because people today are using their tablets and cell phones with their Google feeds to get their news. Subscriptions are down in a huge way. So that's changing a lot of the weight-based diversion that we were able to get in the past. Packaging, the Tide bottle represented here, packaging is actually getting better for the environment, but they're now using materials that aren't one of the 1 through 7s that aren't recyclable. And then lifestyle choices, the growth of the millennials, wanting more convenient, smaller individual packaging compared to baby boomers, are causing manufacturers to change their packaging, many of which, again, are not traditionally recyclable, but in many cases can be better for the environment. Another big movement is the lightweighting of material, and this is fantastic for the environment. We're using a lot less petroleum-based PET to make the bottles that each of the directors has in front of you. In 2000, 48,000 of these bottles would create a ton. Today, 92,000 bottles are required. So we're having to recycle a lot more to come up with the same amount of weight. So it makes it look like the industry is only diverting half as much as before, when in reality, it's much better for the environment because we're using less natural resources in the first place. So this change in composition in the waste stream, this lightweighting of material, and then we combine it with the China National Sword, where we've seen commodity values absolutely plummet. Mixed paper, for example, a year ago was going for about $100 a ton. Today it costs $15 a ton to get rid of it, all creating real challenges. Mr. Ballier spoke about everything going to Asia. There's lots of serious talk now about developing domestic markets. We should have these jobs locally. We should not have to emit all the greenhouse gas by moving things all over the globe instead of just moving them a few miles away. So with the cap and trade greenhouse gas reduction funds, there's serious conversations about using some of those to help subsidize the large investment required. But Los Angeles, Orange County should have its own mills, its own market, so that we can have this closed sustainability loop locally to be more environmental. So the evolving ton, changes in the composition, lighter weight, China national sword, the contamination standards are now 0.5%. So the material that we produce from our MRFs has to be ultra clean. It's really brought about this question of should goals change. And this past year, our Assembly introduced Assembly Bill 1378, which essentially relaxed recycling standards and goals. It was unanimously approved by the Assembly, unanimously approved by the Senate. However, Governor Brown vetoed it. So we expect some form of it to return, as these bills often do. So that really kind of highlights and reflects the challenges in the industry. Many municipalities are having difficulties reaching their mandates given all these changes. We at CR&R continue to perform very well for our partners. We're not part of this movement for AB 1378, but I thought it was important context for the board to understand. But really looking at it, what is the goal? Is it to recycle more weight, or is it to improve our environment? Reducing pollution, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And an example of this is weight-based. Again, a ton recycled is a ton recycled regardless of what the material is. Life cycle analysis shows us that aluminum recycled 1 ton will sequester 7 million tons of CO2, while recycling glass, very heavy, we like to recycle glass because of the weight, but it really has very little environmental benefit because sand is literally an infinite resource. Every time a raindrop hits or high winds come, we have more erosion, more sand is developed from rock, and that's where we make glass from. So many environmentalists feel that recycling glass is actually bad for the environment. So it's really a whole new mindset, and not proposing one position or another to the board, just thought that it would be stimulating for the board to consider this movement towards life cycle analysis. The state of Oregon has officially moved from weight-based diversion to life cycle analysis to achieve their environmental goals. So it's something that we want to keep an eye on, and we do believe has a tremendous amount of merit because goals really do determine programs, and the goals should reflect what we actually want to achieve. This slide, I think, is really telling, and I know there's a lot of data on here for a study session presentation, but the reality is this little millennial box of Folgers contains 29 times product compared to the weight of the packaging, while our traditional baby boomer tin only 3 times product weight for 1 time packaging. So EPR, or extended producer responsibility, is something that we all want to get more involved in. We want our residents in Costa Mesa to make better purchasing decisions, to buy in bulk, and to use less resources in the packaging for the materials that they're consuming. 29 times compared to 3 times product. Great environmental benefit because we're using far less resources. Energy, using 75% less energy than the big tin one. CO2 emissions, 90% less. Space, and then recycling. No, we can't recycle this package. However, for the environment, It's far, far more superlative than the traditional tin. So I think this slide tells a lot and is very profound in the thought that it kind of promotes. We think that your vision statement of promoting a sustainable environment free from pollution is very well aligned with this life cycle analysis. I think this is a visionary vision statement, not to be redundant, because you're really looking to do the right things, not necessarily just recycle more weight. So diversion weight-based goals versus life cycle goals, very big movement. In addition to that, there's 3 other diversion methodologies that the state looks at. Total diversion from landfills is what AB 939 measures, and AB 341, the policy goal. Total diversion from landfills encompasses the entire hierarchy for material recovery. Reducing is absolutely the most critical. Again, we want to make better choices in how we buy products. We can buy the same product with a very big package or a very efficient package. The more efficient and generating less waste to start with is always most important. Reuse of materials follows that. Recycling tends to get towards the bottom, and then the very last resort is disposal. So total diversion from landfills, which is what the state measures, and what the city of Costa Mesa through CalRecycles reports. This is what they measure, and it should, because it encompasses everything. It's better to waste less in the first place than it is to recycle what's been wasted. Some examples are, it's great to come here and see the reusable coffee mugs and all the reusable containers that people bring in. At a Starbucks, we see lots of people using disposables.
Mr. General Manager.
The wonderful thing, if I respectfully may, I'd like to gift your general manager a Starbucks holiday cup, but this is one that is reusable. Far better, it's never going to go into a container in the first place. So, Mr. Carroll?
Well, was his cup from Starbucks?
Yes.
No.
So that really shows the importance, far less desirable than a reusable that can be reused time and time again and never have the waste placed into one of your containers in the first place. And this is why total diversion from landfills continues to be the gold standard. Mass balance. This is also called a real recycling rate, and this is what I think many of your reports and what I observed this morning focus on. And I would suggest that it's flawed. It's a very good measurement. We want to measure it, but it doesn't include the very important source reduction and reuse components of the total hierarchy of recovery. So mass balance takes this recovery hierarchy and it wipes out, just completely wipes out source reduction and reuse. And all that it measures is total tons recycled divided by total tons collected. Again, a great measurement, but it really is usually referred to as mass balance or a recycling rate. The last diversion measurement that the state is using more and more is based on the number of programs. And we have alkaline battery recycling programs here in the district. We have Christmas tree recycling, lots of different specific programs designed to divert materials from landfills. And the state is looking with more and more intentionality at the number of diversion programs that an agency or municipality would have. So really lots of different ways to measure diversion and to move towards our goals, and again, goals are important. So looking at your key diversion data with these different diversion methodologies, the gold standard and what the state measures the municipality upon for both AB 939 and AB 341, the policy goal, your results are absolutely spectacular. Your diversion is 72%. This includes source reduction, this includes reuse, and this includes the recycling rate. CalRecycle measures this in two areas based on population or pounds per person per day, and then they do it based on the number of employees in a jurisdiction. Same measurement, pounds per employee per day. And we see a very nice improvement over the last 10 years from 6.3 pounds per day down to 4.8 pounds per day. And this is, again, phenomenal, placing the Costa Mesa Sanitary District absolutely amongst leaders in the state. We do believe that 75% is achievable, and PARS is going to share some of our outreach ideas to help us get there. But bravo to you, bravo to your partners in achieving these results. The real recycling rate, as you know, 100% of your materials are processed by CR&R. The organics bin goes to the AD facility in Paris, while the mixed resource cart goes to the material recovery facility in Stanton. And looking at these two different carts, 95% diversion from the organics cart and 49% from the mixed cart. Improving separation gives us a double dip benefit, because as we get more organics from the mixed waste cart into the organics cart, we know that we have potentially 100% diversion of that through the anaerobic digestion facility, but it also reduces contamination in the mixed cart so that we can improve recovery there, and we think that's one of the real keys in moving forward. Overall, for the last 12 months, we're at a real recycling rate or mass balance diversion of 59%. And in Scott's report earlier, we know the last 4 months is at 62%, so we're doing even a little bit better more recently. But again, this does not include source reduction or reuse, which are critical components of the recovery hierarchy. And then last, the city of Costa Mesa, with the district being a very important part of it, has 32 defined diversion programs as of 2017. And that would be your Christmas tree recycling, alkaline batteries, and all the different specific diversion programs you have. So this agency is a shining star in the state of California and in the reports of CalRecycle at all diversion measurement levels. But we want to continue to move forward and move the needle forward in meaningful ways. So looking at total diversion from landfills at 71.8% based on population, that would require us improving from 4.8 pounds per day down to 4.5 pounds per day to achieve the 75% statewide policy goal. And to share ideas on how we are going to pursue that in partnership with the district, I'd like to welcome up PARS, who's going to give you an idea of some of the outreach plans.
Before you have PARS come up, that was fantastic.
Thank you, Director Schaefer.
I appreciated that. I sit on the legislation committee for CSDA, and I would love to get that first sheet of all the different...
With the growing tree?
Yes.
Yes.
And with,
happy to share that.
Like AB 939, what you had, all those, that's, I can take it, I'm leaving for Sacramento in the morning. So I just love to get some of that, and I'd love to see this into our next conference CSDA has, seriously, because it would be great for people to see and share what's going on. They come from all over California. So if you could give me a card too, I appreciate that.
More than happy to. And CR&R's been associated with CSDA for many, many years, and always happy to partner.
Well, Sawana has just put out a call for papers for one of their next conferences also, and I expect you probably have shared or would be willing to share some of this information, maybe.
Very happy to, Director. Okay, Pars?
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, directors, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Today, my goal is to share with you a variety of strategies that will help us keep more waste out of the landfill. But before we do that, I want to recap a couple of things. I know most of us here, and most of you guys have been here longer than me, so we kind of know this, but I want to recap for the residents and for others that will be watching this retroactively. First of all, the strategies that have been employed by the district and the hauler thus far have been effective, and you touched upon this. More specifically, the district is a leader, and as Mike Ballier touched upon it, they do have the highest residential diversion rate in Orange County. And as Jeff explained, we're keeping more than 70% of waste out of the landfill. Second, I want to distinguish how unique the district is. You guys were the first ones to adopt MRF technology. As Dean touched, you guys were the first ones to sign on the AD program, and thus you have the lowest rates in Orange County. And now you guys have just added the door-to-door household hazardous waste collection program, which will be very helpful. On the other hand, I also do La Habra. And in La Habra, if like a resident had some hazardous waste, there are a couple of ways we can go about it. So first, I can refer them to the county collection centers and just kind of hope that they're willing to drive up to Blue Gum's facility. Or, I can promote the 2 collection events that we have biannually. But after that, I kind of just have to, hope that they have the goodwill, that they'll put in the extra effort to go to the county or to hold on to that material until the collection event. On the other hand, in Costa Mesa, residents can call in and have that picked up door side. And that's kind of critical. That's kind of very helpful to us on this side of the fence when we're trying to keep more waste out of the landfill. Third, all of us here have something in common. And I think to all of us, we care about the environment. We care about the future. Some of us here have kids or grandkids. And we want to make a difference. And I believe that by focusing on organics and connecting with the resident, we can continue to have that impact. So the way we went about this is we kind of went for what we'd like to believe is the lower hanging fruit, the areas where we thought we could have more impact. So first, Nabil and I worked together to develop the new residential guide. As you all know, the residential guide is critical in communicating the services and the programs residents receive. It's kind of like a source of inquiry. We'd like to believe that people put a magnet and keep it on their refrigerator, keep it in close access. And for the most part, it used to be in English, but a significant portion of Costa Mesa speaks Spanish. Therefore, we decided to make it bilingual, and Nabila deserves a lot of credit on that one. And we believe that by directly communicating with the Spanish-speaking households, we can increase participation in that segment and overall impact our diversion rate. Next. Now, all of us here, we all have to do something in common, right? We all have to drink water, we all have to eat food, and we all breathe oxygen to live. Yet there are some inhabited homes in Costa Mesa that are, I guess, not generating food waste, or maybe it's not being accounted for. And in a recent residential query, we found that more than 2,800 homes don't have an organics cart. So I'm going to review the exemptions list and try to work with some of those homes and try to see if we can get something going. I know for a decent amount of them, or maybe in a majority of them, there may be some legitimate challenges, but at the same time, I think people's values change over time. And like Mike was saying, if there's a will, there's a way. Next, we want to kind of increase participation amongst those that are already active in the program. And even though in life, like generally when there's something for free, people take advantage, in Costa Mesa, base service includes 2 organics carts, yet less than 700 have a second organics cart. And that's only one part of the puzzle, right? Because even if they have an organics cart, we're not sure if they're sending it out or if they're actively using it. So I'm going to be canvassing certain parts of the neighborhood, sampling them, and trying to come up with a set-out rate and try to promote set-outs so that more people participate. Now, the most essential part in this is we need residents to actually separate their food waste, right? And that's easy to say, hard to accomplish. Education has been superb, as you touched upon. They've received informative outreach materials over time, but yet it's still been kind of hard to conquer that, to kind of get over that hill. And if we can if we can do a better job of getting residents to separate food waste, we can induce what we like to call a double dip in diversion. First, less recyclables in the mixed waste cart will be contaminated. Second, the tonnage in the mixed waste cart and the amount of residual waste that ends up in the landfill will decrease. And third, the tonnage in the organics cart is going to increase. And as he touched upon earlier, the recycle rate in the organics cart is incredible, right? More than 95% of that material ends up being recycled. So if we can get residents to do a better job of separating the food waste, we can maybe figure out the most essential part of this puzzle. And since stimulating behavior change has been challenging, in my months here, I found it challenging. I think you guys would all agree that it's a little bit harder than just to say it. So I looked into an alternate field to try to gain some strategies and try to see if there's a way where maybe there are some other ideas out there that could be effective in Costa Mesa. And particularly, I drew from the field of behavioral economics. Have any of you guys seen this book, Nudge, Richard Thaler? No? Okay. So this book, it focuses on behavioral economics, and in it, Thaler argues that if you want to create a specific outcome, then you need to stimulate individuals in a certain way to create that specific outcome. And it's easy to say, but in essence, what he meant is, for example, if you want people to participate in organ donor registration, then maybe it's a good idea to ask them during the process something that they do routinely in life on a consistent basis. So they tie that question in at the DMV, and now residents are asked if they want to be an organ donor. And it has worked. It has worked. So over time, Thaler has developed other nudges, and as a result, he ended up winning the Nobel Prize in Economics. And to tie that back to the district, I believe that if we can create stimuli that will essentially nudge the residents in the right direction, we can do a better job of separating food waste. And I think you guys kind of already understand that, which is why you guys invested in the food pails in the first place. I think that's an amazing nudge, and that's exactly like the epitome of what we'd want. However, we need to find a way to get them in all households, and that will be key. Next,
that's not going to be a nudge. That's going to be more like a tractor. Because I'll be honest with you, I think the food pails failed. I mean, everybody I've talked in my own household, my wife refuses. She puts the stuff in a bag and puts it in the refrigerator. So while it was good for us to give those for free, that one needs some rethinking. I'm just tossing that out there for you.
I'm the opposite. Mine is great. You know, I have the recycled bags to go into the pail.
Okay.
And then take
Which
it
is your
in
next?
and throw it out.
Yeah. Okay.
So you guys both brought valid points, and we should have more open house discussions. When we went to the 80 facility, and this time with Director Arlene Schaefer, and also Gina, you were there. We kind of had an open house discussion when we were eating lunch, and one of the main concerns from residents was what we like to refer to as the ickiness factor and the hygiene portion of it, and I believe that one of the ways we can overcome the ickiness factor is that in the beginning, when residents were beginning the program, it would be helpful if they had some compostable bags for free. Eventually, they have to purchase their own, or they could use newspapers or some other sources. Although the amount of newspapers in circulation continues to decrease, but they could potentially, or just do it raw, right? But in the beginning, to overcome the ickiness factor, giving them a free compostable bag would kind of help defeat that barrier to entry.
I don't use a food pail, but my wife uses little plastic bowls. Food pails don't really have a space in my refrigerator. So I think that maybe the name should be changed, not from the food pails, but methods of recycling food organics, because I think there's quite a few ingenious ways to do it. Not without using a food pail, but a food pail should be an alternative for those who are willing to use them. My wife wouldn't use it, but we recycle almost all of our organics, just with little plastic things that we've gotten, in various ways. So I think alternatives should be made available that might more easily fit in the refrigerator or whatever. Anyway.
Go ahead, yeah.
Let me just say that Amazon, I get my bags to go into the pail, 100 of them for $8. It's so easy, So.
So, I mean, I think all three of you guys made valid comments related to the food pill, and in some ways maybe it's not as efficient. Maybe then the food pill should just be one element of the toolbox, and maybe there's some other strategies that we need to add to basically act as a collection vessel, right, between the house and the organics cart.
Well, I can bring you 50 little things. My little food pail's this tall and about that round.
So that's similar to the one we have at home too. Did you get it from Daiso?
Pardon?
Did you get it from Daiso?
No.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think this is. Well, I'll show them to you later.
Obviously, he eats a lot less than, say,
Well, I made more.
Sorry, you opened yourself up for this.
I think it's that is an appropriate way, but the nudge may need to be, more widespread opportunities.
And one sock doesn't fit all homes, right? One sock isn't the solution for all. So you're right about that. I agree. We can talk more after. So the first two are some nudges that will help us kind of defeat the barrier to entry to kind of get people started. But after they get started, we want to positively reinforce good behavior, right? We want to keep them engaged. We want them to feel good because, in essence, they're really doing something that's helpful, and they should understand the impact that they're having. So I'll be canvassing the neighborhoods to promote set-outs and also to positively reinforce good behavior, like in the form of hang tags and other outreach messages. Eventually, we'll be keeping track of that, and we'll know the ones that are doing it well, and I'll relay it to the districts so that you guys will have the opportunity to highlight them. And then lastly, Nabila and I are working on developing an email like kind of inventory. On our side of things, when they work with us in the customer service department, some residents do provide emails, and then I know some residents have provided you guys as well. We're going to be promoting the email to sign up for emails in the new Resi Guide, and the idea here is that we want to promote sustainability and we want to actively engage with the residents, but we also need to do that in a consistent manner and in a cost-efficient manner. And emails allow us to do that. It kind of gives us the best of both worlds. And maybe the best part of it all, it's going to be paperless. So that'll be nice. Now, those are some of the parts of the puzzle, but to kind of put it together, and I included a handout for you guys. Yeah, you saw that, right? The 2020 plan. And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to start a Welcome to the Neighborhood Kit kind of program where new residents that join the community will have the opportunity to engage with me. I will personally go to their home and hand deliver their food pill, as well as the residential guide and some other outreach materials. And the idea being that I want to engage with them when they're kind of in an impressionable state, right? They're kind of understanding what the community is like and what it is like to live in Costa Mesa. And I want to be there to fill that void. I want to be there to define the culture that Costa Mesa is trying to create and address any kind of inquiries that they might have. So I'll be engaging with new residents. Additionally, we want to engage with existing customers. So we're going to do that by mailing out flyers. And those flyers are going to accomplish two things primarily, but also introduce other information to the residents. And what the goal that we want to accomplish is I want them to have an opportunity to engage with me, right? Because there's like 22,000 plus homes in Costa Mesa, and some of them care a little bit more about sustainability than others. And for those, for the lower hanging fruit, I want to be able to engage with them. I want to be able to connect with them. So they're going to have the opportunity to arrange for either a driveway meeting, basically where I can meet with them, and maybe there's some other residents in the neighborhood, and we can meet up on a driveway and talk trash. And then on the other hand, talk trash, not talk trash about people.
There's been a lot of that going on recently in Costa Mesa.
And then we'll also host town hall meetings at District HQ. And this is something that you guys have done in the past. I saw the one with Director Carroll and Mike Silva. And I thought that was effective. I thought that people asked some engaging questions. And we also had a mini version of that with Director Schaefer and Gina. And also I think Bao was there at the 80 facility. And it's nice to get feedback from people. It's nice to get their input. We can't always resolve everything, but it's nice to know that information and keep it relevant. Lastly, when I engage with the residents, I'm going to be promoting the Citizens Advisory Committee, and that's technically an initiative from their side, but I think it's a great initiative. I think it can be pivotal in maintaining our progress as we accomplish that. And the way I like to think about it is, growing up in school, my mentor used to tell me it's one thing to get an A, but another thing to maintain that A through the year. And I think that if we want to maintain our progress, we're going to need to build up ambassadors in the community. And they've already begun the program. I can help promote it and help recruit people, essentially. So by having that ambassadorship, I think we can, continue to progress and stay there. So that kind of sums up the outreach and some of the initiatives that we want to start. And I welcome any questions.
So welcome to Neighborhood Kit. It's going to be geared towards like real estate agents and people like that, or how are you going to do that?
So that's a great question. First the customers, after they establish their home, they're going to work.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I sort of anticipate what you can say, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So we do get a list of the new residents that create accounts, and rather the person on our side and Nabila, they work together to reconcile that list. So I'm going to get that list, and now I'm going to go to their home. If I have a phone number, I can call them in advance. I am not sure how they'll receive us. In the beginning, Nabila is going to join me, and we'll have the opportunity to.
I think looking at her face is going to make it a lot easier for people to let you in than looking. I think that's a really, because typically the real estate group has a welcome to the neighborhood, or we're going to get lost in that. And I think your proposal, when we get the update going to them, that's fantastic. That's the right way to do it as far as I'm concerned.
I think they're going to find it very welcoming. I think they'll find it engaging. Now, some people might not want to talk trash, to be honest. But at the same time, I think a lot of people will be receptive. And I'm not the way I envision it. It's going to be at the doorstep. I don't anticipate. I'm not even going to ask them to enter the household. I don't anticipate them even inviting me. More likely, we'll walk around to where they keep their carts and talk in their driveway, talk along their backyard, something like that, and engage them. And I kind of get their thoughts, first of all. Where did they come from? How was trash handled where you were previously? And then kind of lead them into the way we handle things in Costa Mesa and why sustainability matters to the community.
Well, my experience is, are these going to be cold calls, or are these going to be invited calls?
So a couple of things. Now, when they register with us, we're going to have some contact information, so I will reach out to them. But I'm not entirely sure how receptive people will be to the initial phone call. I'm still going to go there, right? Because they could just be busy. Maybe they just didn't check their phone. Maybe they thought I was like phony for whatever reason.
Well, my experience with cold calls is, walking the precincts, is you get about 1 in 10 people. Many more people see you, but most don't answer the door. And I know when I walk up to that door, whether it's a single woman living in the house, a family of 10, so I know a lot about them. And if you have no information about who lives in that house, you'll get about 1 in 10 responses. I mean, just FYI.
No, so you're right about that. And in cases like that, we may just have to leave the outreach materials on the doorstep. They will have my contact information and have the opportunity to follow up with me. But that is a concern, right? Because some people may move in and then directly jump back into their 8 to 5 work.
And there's a huge turnover. I don't know what the turnover is, but I think Mike hit upon, I think you've got to get the realtors involved, because I think the average stay in a house is not very many years. So there'll be new people coming in, and you've got to get a way to contact those people on a continuous basis. I think your head, I admire your effort. You'll lose weight doing this.
That'll be good, I guess. Do you have a resource in like the Realtor Association or something that you'd?
I think we all do.
Oh, you all do. Okay.
Well, the Newport Mesa really, it's in existence, and you could go through them, and they could coordinate it probably.
Okay. That'd be helpful then. And I can also understand the Welcome to the Neighborhood initiative that they have on their end. Do you know if that encompasses trash, or is that more like a?
I haven't heard of them being active in that arena.
anything like the Realtors Association.
But realtors are innovative, and, you know, if they see an opportunity, I think that they might take advantage of it.
And they all have websites.
I got a different topic.
Go for it.
Talking to Jeff. Now, to get us down from 4.5 to 4.2, would additional green and food waste help do that?
Mhm.
Because, you know, because I've mentioned to Scott, maybe we could provide a service at OCC. I don't know if they're certified to do that for the gardeners in Costa Mesa. They all come and drop it at OCC, and then CR&R picks it up and takes it out to Paris. That would drop, you know, I don't know if that's a program we could instill or not, but this is a larger scale than, you know, going to the homes and having them do it. But this would be, because if you let all the gardeners in Costa Mesa know, instead of, I don't know where they take it now, but they probably have to take it to a site. But what are they going to do in 2020?
You know, a lot of gardeners, they just drop it into your green pail.
Well, in my area,
In my-
we have a commercial company that does it because we don't have green waste.
Oh,
So I'm just thinking there's a number of those places in Costa Mesa that they have to take it somewhere. If they could take it to OCC, put it in a bin, and OCC monitors it. And if we're trying to, if we're looking at a larger scale, reduce it from 4.5 to 4.2, that might be a program.
educating gardeners.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It'd be a lot easier doing that.
Well, also, I think OCC would be a huge opportunity for, you know, the household food waste programs. I mean, they could hand out, you know, the people that go to OCC are the people that already have a recycling ethic. So if you could make something available to them there, you know, the food pails and or alternative ways to collect, to educate them and to give them devices, you know, and advice. You've already got a community, you know, a community that's likely to respond. I think that'd be much more effective than, you know, going door to door. But because you know, they come right there, so you could be dressed up like a big raindrop or something, and something that would attract their attention. You could borrow Mesa Water's raindrop.
You know, I was just kind of tagging to what Art is saying. I don't mind, I would like to see a centralized facility for the garden, but I think as part of your welcome to the neighborhood kit, just a note or something in there that says, hey, don't forget to remind your gardener to put the waste into the pail, into the lime green pail. I mean, just one step in that.
So that will be a part of it. We'll add that in. And to tie back to yours, I do believe that going after the lower hanging fruit and the people that are already receptive to is going to be very beneficial in the beginning, right? Because they're the ambassadors. They're the people that can kind of form the foundation. And that's something that Nabil and I can discuss and see if there's something that works out that kind of incorporates what OCC is doing.
Anything else for Forrest?
Oh, I think
The last thing is, are there any other cities doing different programs that we don't do? I would like to know. That's kind of where Bob was leading. Is there other programs out there that we should look at that we're not doing already?
I mean,
Not to tell us today, but
yeah.
in the future.
Yeah, so I'll have to do some more research on that. I mean, I know locally that you guys are pioneers in many ways, and you guys, I think you guys are the only city to have a full portfolio of services for residents. The newest addition being the door-to-door household hazardous waste. But we have to do a little bit more research and see what else is out there.
There might be, you know, that's my question.
There has to be other things out there, right? The Bay Area has been.
That's what Bob was trying to get at, is what other things we can do that we're not doing already.
Yeah. And we can review, because there are other regions, right, like in the Bay Area, for example, where they're having some more success in retaining food waste from the waste stream. So there are things we can look at. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope you all agree these guys did a great job, and that's really remarkable. I'm really pleased to be part of their team. The one thing that Scott and I have talked a little bit about, and we talked to Mayor Foley about it a little bit, and the thing that really scares me in the next year is...
She's the new mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for the correction. In 2020 and in 2022, I'm really worried about green waste from multifamily residential, the homeowners associations that have it collected by their gardeners, and it's a massive amount of materials. With the elimination of ADC, alternative daily cover, next year, which is where most of this is going to, either through CR&R at CRT or self-haulers or gardeners bring it in, or through TVI, Tierra Verde Industries over in Irvine. With ADC going away, the gardeners are going to see an extremely high increase in the rate of getting rid of green waste. It's going to encourage them to go directly to the landfill. And cities that do not have business licenses for their gardeners or their HOA people and do not have a good regulation on where it's going to go. So what happens with the green? And then secondly, what happens with the food waste? And Jeff Pars, is it 2022 with multifamily? And 2022 has to be diverted from multifamily. What happens with that? Our city's going to get involved. Jeff and I were with a city the other day, and they are just fighting it. And to the point where we expect if they, even though they're not taking our recommendations or programs, they're probably going to be in a compliance order in the first quarter of next year. But this board and this sanitary district is so far ahead of the jurisdiction we're in that it may be wise for you to consider more and more talking to the city of Costa Mesa about helping them with the multifamily residential here in the city. That's my point. Thank you very much.
That's well taken, Dean. I think that's huge, and I appreciate you saying that.
Well, this is why I feel it's so important for us to educate the gardeners, because the gardeners don't understand what they can do. Like my gardener has 3 different houses. He dumps it all in my green can. And that's great. I encourage it, you know. And if they knew that they could do that, the cans are there, and they could do that, there would never be a problem. We get a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask Dean a question?
Of course.
You talking about the commercial, Dean, for the city?
Yeah. My question is, multifamily, you know, we have approached the city in regards to multifamily, as you well know. And they need to be educated, because I don't think they even have a clue as to what's on the horizon. Maybe, you know, maybe we could.
Well, I think with the new election that just passed, we are in a great position to do that and make it be positive.
Yeah.
Because
I think we have a new administration coming in, frankly, that's younger, and they're more aware of this stuff.
Right.
And I think they're going to be far more receptive to our efforts to partner than what we've seen over the last.
it may be
10
worth,
years,
once
12 years.
they get in November 4th or December 4th, after that time, we should have a meeting with you and Scott and, you know, kick out the idea. I think it'd be real beneficial for us.
I think
Well,
that's a
and
great
graphically show them what's in store for them if they don't do it. They've still got to comply no matter what.
Talk to them about what, that $10,000 a day, that'll get their attention in a minute, or half a minute.
But, you know, with the city, that's the thing that they sent to the state, because we're under the city auspices, you know, we're at 4.5 with theirs already, but we can build on that,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
I think the new city council is going to be receptive. So I think a meeting with Katrina Foley and the new members, or all the members.
You know, especially on the west side,
Yeah.
with Mr. Chavez being so young and being Hispanic, well, we're going to have an in on some of that.
Plus, he's a Estancia
What's
graduate, and so is Arliss Reynolds, Estancia graduate.
Of course, I had a question.
won't hold
You
that
had a
against him.
statistic, that's right. You had a statistic that 2,700, is it 2,700 residents or 2,800 that don't have a lime green, that don't have an organics can? How did that happen? I mean, did they just
No,
refuse to take it?
You remember when we did the town hall meeting, we asked for, they can apply for exemptions, and it was quite simple. They don't have a yard, or they don't have a large families, they don't produce food scraps, and quite frankly, we just took their word at it. You know, there was no, you know, we're not we're not going to strong arm tactic, nothing like that, and we just took their word for it. So
That kind of explains that statistic, kind of explains what some of our detractors have said is nobody's using those organics cans. When I drive around my neighborhood on Thursday,
Yeah.
everybody's got them out.
Everybody in my area too has them out.
You know? So I think maybe at some point, that's gonna be a little work, I think, but I think we need to get back to those 20, of those exemption people.
it's the number is going to be probably higher because with all the new development going in, what we're seeing is when they request a will serve letter from us for their solid waste, they're asking to be exempt for organics because they're high development, they're high density development. So there's very little green waste. So there's really no need for it. So we're seeing a lot of that with the new development, infill developments. They're asking for exemptions. So that 2,800 is going to probably go up.
Yes, there's also certain parts of the city where it's those small multifamily homes where they were exempted because there's no place to there's no additional space to place the carts out because of parking. So some residents from those areas have come forward and say they're interested in participating, but the organics truck doesn't even pass by there. So even if they want to participate and they find space, the truck totally avoids their area because of, again, the density, and there's no space, and it's not worth to just drive by for one or two.
I think it's part of this whole education process, this whole outreach is to get those people, we need to nudge those people to use what you were talking about.
Right. And then to tie back to what Nabila was saying, so in the most recent query, it was about like 87.48% of homes have an organics cart. That doesn't mean that they're all using it. Now, some of them are justifiably there are some reasons why it will be very challenging. And I'm not going to stiff arm or try to strong arm anyone. There's not pressure, but I believe that by connecting to them like on an emotional level, to try to convey to them how they can contribute value, right, in a very positive way, and how they can reduce the impact on their environment, and really framing it as in an environmental health message. And I think from that perspective, some people will be receptive. And we'll find out, what that number is over time.
Any other questions on this subject? Great presentation. Thank you. Jeff, Ars, Dean, thank you guys. Dana, thanks for your work. Okay, I'm going to ask that we take a biological break. Let's get to late. So let's take a 5 or 6 minute break before we resume. Is that okay?
You bet.
There's been a suggestion made that we take care of a couple of quick items now and then move the balance of the study session items to a special study session on the 26th of November, whatever month it is. Rob, does that Tony clinks in your plans for the pump
Hang on
station?
1 sec, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 26th?
Yeah, Monday the 26th at 9 a.m.
A little sooner. I have 11 o'clock meeting.
Well, we have the ad hoc at 8:30.
26th, all clear.
Okay.
Now let's reschedule the ad hoc meeting. Can you talk to Mike and Al about that?
Scott, is your meeting here?
Yes.
So
So we can start at 8:30 on the 26th? Okay, so if the board, let's
8:30, okay.
let's go ahead and do item 7 then, and the rest we can move out. That, part of that, all the items that are remaining, we're still before the board meeting, so whatever we talk about on the 26th, we still have time to get it on the board meeting if we need to, correct?
Sure.
It's going to be 9?
8:30.
8:30 what's the ad hoc committee?
You guys.
I
At
know,
nine-
but what
9
time
o'clock.
are we?
Well, they're gonna have to talk to Mike
I'll
and
change
Al
that.
about rescheduling it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll just leave it.
What date is that now?
Monday the
Monday
26th.
the 26th.
Okay, I'll just leave it.
Oh, I got that.
The ad hoc.
Ad hoc.
Not on that one.
Okay, so then let's do, let's hear all about Nashville, Tennessee. Did you go to the Batman building?
I saw it.
Saw it.
I saw it.
And how many honky tonks?
Did you go to the oldest music program in the world? The longest running music program, which is the Grand Ole Opry?
She
It
doesn't
was
look
right
like-
next to the it was right next to the hotel. I
You stayed
didn't.
at that
Oh, you stayed at the nice hotel?
The Gaylord?
That, the Gala, wow.
That's where former Director Fitzpatrick and I and Joan stayed for a coffee. Did you get lost in there?
Yes, I had to.
Sorry to interrupt, but go ahead, Nabila.
How's the gumbo?
I didn't try gumbo.
They don't have gumbo in Nashville, do they?
Oh,
Oh, they have hot chicken.
They have Jack Daniels in Nashville.
President Schaefer, members of the board, in August I had the opportunity to attend the Solid Waste Association of North America's largest event, which is WasteCon. The conference was filled with education sessions and keynote panels that cover topics of safety, the changing market for recyclable materials, technology, and much more. This year's conference held a MRF summit with sessions focusing on the China ban. I attended an interesting session regarding the single stream waste versus source separating. Recycling with a panel of trash haulers, landfill managers, MRF owners, and local municipalities. This is something the district talked to CRNR about before the new contract came into place, of switching to 3-cart system would be better, and they said no. And this panel basically reinforced that. Ultimately, it was decided that a single stream recycling does not equal less recycling material. They see single stream as a future and ill-advised against switching to source separating barrels because habits are hard to break, and they will result in higher cost and more contamination. Another great session I attended focused on the metrics for developing and measuring recycling goals. It was a great opportunity to see what other agencies are using to measure their recycling diversion rates. Some agencies want to factor in quality and quantity, so they focus on how much is compost, goes to waste to energy and landfill, and then they go from there. In Minnesota, they use weight-based and greenhouse gas formulas because recycling is not the ultimate goal for them. They focus on reuse and life cycle of the material. The EPA focuses on the type of material they want to recycle, set goals, and measure their success that way. So it's really interesting to see how all of these different agencies go about it different ways. Every agency has their own criteria, and it's not an apples-to-apples comparison. But ultimately, we can't improve what we don't measure. So I think the district does a great job of tracking how much is disposed of, how much goes to the AD facility, and how much goes to the landfill. I learned that 77% of recovered materials come from the commercial and industrial sectors, while only 23% of it comes from the residential sector. So that would be glass, paper, plastic. The overall recycling rate for the country is 24%. And we extract 84 billion of materials per year to meet our needs, but only recycle about 9% of it. So it was overall a great conference. I learned a lot. I learned what other agencies, what other states are doing, and I can reaffirm that we are ahead. That concludes my report. I can take any questions.
They have a big exhibit hall with all the big trucks and stuff in it.
Yeah, one of the companies had a new kind of game set up where they can teach drivers how to avoid. So it looked like a big game. I could sit in there, and they would have cars pulling out, and they would have the carts to close, and just what the drivers have to do. It was a simulator. It was really amazing.
I think Swan does a great job with their stuff.
They're great.
Thank you for attending, and appreciate the.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to attend.
Okay, go to communications and comments. I have just one. The staff left a letter here on the dais from the Estancia and Tewinkle Schools Foundation, thanking us for our support of their gala on October 6th. Basically just a thank you. It's interesting to look at the Estancia Distinguished Alumni Award winners, the people who had attended Estancia, people like John Orsini, Wing Lam, John Gray, Alan Mansour, and then the 2014 Distinguished Alumni, Mike Schaefer. Right. So,
Oh, gee.
I don't know what basis.
I'm not an alumni.
Any other director comments, anything else?
No, very good meeting.
Good job.
Thank you all, then we are adjourned. Thank you, staff.
You gotta get to go.
Wait a minute. Art, now that we're adjourned,
Right?
look at your calendars and see how December 13th looks for